Hello and welcome to the Chatterbox Letters podcast. Today I will be doing another special presentation. I will be reading my second self-published book, my sequel to the Minorities, the pilot. I will be reading to everyone the Minorities, Richard's Indiscretion, Chapter 3. I hope everyone will enjoy my sequel while I read to everyone the Minorities, Richard's Indiscretions. This will be my huge chatter letter to my viewers. All right, let me go ahead and pick up on Chapter 3. Chapter 3. The Interrogation of Richard's Accomplices. Later that evening at the old abandoned house, headquarters, Mondovi and his gang of terror interrogated Franklin's misdeeds for carrying out Richard's request to assassinate his ex-friends Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins. Franklin was given an ultimatum. Buster creeped out of the dark from one of his old rooms in the house. He was very calm, cool, while collective his thoughts on what comes next for him to carry out. We heard all the commotion you had going on, partner, out there at the lot near the candy wrapper, and we figured on this. You, my brother, didn't take care of business you were supposed to. Mondovi was face to face with Franklin while he was tapping his hand on his 9mm still in his holster. I'll get them the next time around. I almost shot one of them, and the one that ran like a 3-legged turtle. Franklin nervously responded to Mondovi. Mondovi frantically stared at Franklin while he was still tapping his 9mm partially out of its holster. Victor came in rage with Franklin's disobedience for not carrying out Richard's request to assassinate Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins. What are you talking about, punk? A jive behind 3-legged turtle? You're the 3-legged turtle, and you're the low one at this. Next page. Can't take care of business. I mean, what happened to you, Frankie? You don't know how to put some lead in some maggot behind butts? Mondovi was still face to face with Franklin, with his state of mind for being calm, cool, but totally frustrated to the fact that Richard's request was not carried out as planned. Mondovi and his misfits accomplice made the ultimate decision concerning Franklin's misdeeds. They decided to put the end of Franklin's life, stopping his clock from tick-tock to total silence. Franklin, my dear mon ami, maybe you're not cut out to be a member of this gang of terror. Let me front you with an ultimatum. Richard already knows that the hit didn't go through as planned. In fact, that you didn't take care of business, take care of the two clowns. So with this said, Richard told me to stop your clock at tick-tock, our partner. Secondly, Mondovi moved aside so that Kendrick could have a piece of Franklin. He confronted Franklin with information about the Langston family, Kevin and Luther, and their families being brought into protective custody. You are burnt toast, and we'll take care of you personally, partner. It's like taking out the trash and the word is already out on the street. All those people that were involved in getting Richard sent to prison are in protective custody as we speak, partner. What means? Kendrick moved aside for Buster to take the last crack at Franklin's misdeeds. He confronted Franklin with an ultimatum, confirming that his time on Earth was up in the dumps. Those people who sent Richard to prison cannot, and I mean cannot be touched with the index finger nor my toes, which in terms we as Gang of Terror will reach out and touch you personally. Instead, Franklin's whole entire body was paralyzed from fear. His face was pale like it turned to stone. Franklin knew his clock was ticking down to the seconds and microseconds until there were no seconds left to hold on to. Mondovi and his gang of terror took Franklin into one of the dark rooms and tortured Franklin throughout the night for not carrying out Richard's request to assassinate his friends. More darkness filled the sky as hours passed. Mondovi and his gang of terror continued their torture throughout the night, trying him down and zip ties, pulling some of his fingernails off and pulling some of his teeth. The other methods of torture. Franklin cried out in pain while it was extremely substantial for him to bear. After Franklin was drugged to the alley near the candy wrapper and tossed without a care in the world to him. Then an unknown source out of nowhere spotted Franklin in a secluded alley where no one would think to look. He almost immediately called the police. Detective George Stevens and Officer Dunleavy patrolled the part of the neighborhood because it was known for its frequent violence throughout the area, where unsolved homicides turn into cold cases, and some misdemeanors were often committed. They drove frequently throughout the neighborhood, searching around for their possible unknown assailant, Franklin. There was no trace of him to be found. Detective Stevens called for backup to help with the search. He and Officer Dunleavy continued to patrol the rough neighborhood for 30 minutes into their search for an unknown assailant. Detective Stevens decided to take a turn down into the secluded alley where the unknown source first spotted the body. As the detective strolled down into the alley, and Officer Dunleavy spotted a dark image of a body lying face down in a secluded alley. "Look down there. I think I see something lying in the road. Shine the light over there, Officer Dunleavy." Officer Dunleavy shined the high-beamed light from the car directly on the dark image laying in the road. He discovered that the dark image was a human body. "That looks like a body over there, Officer Stevens. It's laying over there near some boxes in the alleyway." Officer Dunleavy adjusted the high-beam spotlight for a better visual of the body. "Let's get out and get the better look at the body, Detective Stevens." Excuse me. Detective Stevens came to an abrupt stop halfway into the secluded alley. Officer Dunleavy grabbed his flashlight as he exited. Next page. From the police cruiser. He and Detective Stevens carefully walked over to the body without destroying possible evidence known as their potential crime scene. Officer Dunleavy shined the light on the body. Detective Stevens confirmed the body's identity as the body of Franklin Nash. "Oh my. This is our boy right here, Franklin Nash. This is the guy that the two boys we have in protective custody reported him for the attempted murder on their lives, and now over the main suspect is officially murdered. I'll be doggone." Officer Dunleavy acknowledged the fact that they now have a crime scene and they were faced with murder of Franklin Nash. "I think now, Detective, we got a possible homicide. You can tell about the way he looks. This guy was completely tortured. It seemed to be what happened here. He also has some missing teeth, some of his fingernails, and private parts. Do I need to continue here? This cat was completely tortured and mutilated. We need to find the people who basically murdered this guy, and he is identified as Franklin Nash." Officer Dunleavy quickly walked back to the police cruiser to open the trunk to retrieve the crime scene tape. He immediately tapes off the entire scene surrounding Franklin's body. The backup police cruisers finally arrived to the scene of the crime. Detective Stevens called in for a coroner to inspect and retrieve Franklin's body. Officer Stevens returned to his police cruiser and filled out his report on the demise of Franklin Nash. "What a total waste out here on these rough streets. 2 days after the demise of Franklin Nash, and with the investigation ongoing into Franklin's murder, the police focused their attention on suspected that Mondovi and his gang of terror were the ones in the possible murder of Franklin Nash. They were all brought in for questioning. Though booked into the system will be potential interrogation before they can be possibly charged with murder of Franklin Nash. The burden of proof must be challenged before they can be charged. They were interrogated one by one. Mondovi was the first to be interrogated by the destructible Detective Allen. The lead investigator in the murder of Franklin Nash, Mondovi was extremely hardcore and aware of his surroundings and what was going on with the case as he was questioned by Detective Allen about the murder of Franklin Nash. "Hey, detective, what the heck do you want with me? You don't have anything on me or my boys, and I don't have anything to do with nothing. I don't have nothing to say to you." Detective Allen closely confronted Mondovi. He was extremely frustrated with Mondovi's answers. Mondovi tried to worm his way out of being prosecuted for murder of Franklin Nash. "Are you trying to make a complete fool out of me, you stinkweed? We got you all covered like stink on doo-doo. We got a few witnesses who are now in protective custody, but we have one witness now who was walking near the abandoned house that you were all in, and they could hear you in torturing and beating to the pulp of this guy. How I know this? Well, the witness fingered you and your miserable misfits as members of the abandoned household. They know you and your gang of terror are part of that house, and they can place you and your jerk-off gang of terror at the scene of the crime, the abandoned house, and you were all in there beating the heck out of Franklin Nash corpse. And I can say you and your gang of terror are not going to worm your way out of this one, Bob." Mondovi smiled at Detective Allen while he tried to justify his involvement in the murder, and as he denied knowing Franklin. "I'm telling you, detective, you don't have nothing on me, partner. I didn't do anything to that whatever guy you're talking about or speaking of. And who in the heck is Franklin Nash?" Detective Allen came completely frustrated and completely aggravated with Mondovi. He discontinued his interrogation with Mondovi and called the other police officer to come into the interrogation room to take Mondovi to a holding cell for further notice. "This is Officer Robert Allen. I want someone, I don't care who it is, to come here and take this disgraced dirtbag to a holding cell because I'm tired of looking at his lying, pathetic face. We're going to charge all three hoods with the murder of Franklin Nash. Next page. Detective Stephen overheard Detective Allen's potential conviction of Mondovi and his gang of terror as entered the interrogation room right after Mondovi was taken out to a holding cell. All the rest of Mondovi's gang of terror were questioned for the murder of Franklin Nash. With that extensive interrogation and plea bargains, all of Mondovi's gang of terror members accepted the plea bargains they were given, all except Mondovi. Detective Robert Allen was convinced from the statement of the witness who came forward as they witnessed the torture and brutal beating of Franklin Nash. He, in his heart, knew that Richard Morris was behind the ongoing conspiracy. Detective Allen, I think we need to have a little talk with Scud's Bucket. Friends. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Scud's Bucket Friends. Where was I? Okay. All right. I just lost my place. Okay. Let me go ahead and find my place. And while I'm trying to find where I left off, let me go ahead and get some glasses on. Okay, let me get some glasses on. All right, so I can see better. All right, Scud's Bucket Friends. They accepted free bargains, ongoing. Okay, I got my place. Detective Allen, I think we need to have a little talk with Scud's Bucket friend, Richard Norris, We are going to make sure this case sticks to him like a bunch of sticker bushes. We need to bring up more charges on him in conspiracy to have Mr. Nash murdered. I really want to send him up further state, and I hope when this case goes to trial that he is given life without any kind of possibility of parole whatsoever. This jerkweed is a total danger to society. I hate to think of his parents, how they must be devastated by his evil actions. More than I hate to say this about this bad seed named Richard Morris, but this kid has turned into a complete monster, and it's a total waste of life like he's going. 1 hour after Richard was brought from the state penitentiary into the interrogation room to be questioned, Detective George Stevens entered the interrogation room with the intent to get some answers out of Richard for conspiracy for murder of Franklin Nash and the attempted murders of Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins, and his second attempt on Sarah Langston's life, and other string of potential crimes he had initiated and planned while incarcerated. Detective Stephen was extremely determined to get life in prison without parole for Richard. Well, look at who snuck through my doors of this interrogation room. Richard Morris. How are you, Richie? What the heck you been up to in our state-beloved penitentiary for the last 2 years of your pathetic life? Richard stared at detectives with haste, refusing to cooperate with their line of questioning. I don't have anything to say to either one of you punk detectives. Nada. Detective Stephen and Detective Allen decided to give Richard a bite of information about his accomplice turning state's evidence against him. We already know what happened to your friend, you rookie assassin, Franklin Nash. He was killed by your gang of terror. Let us see. We have your friend Mondovi, Buster Brown, Kendrick, and Victor, and you scum bums down here tonight. Detective Stevens revealed the rest of the evidence involving Mondovi and his gang of terror to Richard. Your gang-banging terror assassins tried to deny everything about the murder of Franklin Nash. They told us that they didn't have anything to do with the murder of the alleged accomplice, aka assassin, Franklin Nash, but with a witness who decided to come forward, gave us all the evidence we need to put your worthless butt away. Take this scumbag away, Detective Allen, because I don't want to look at his pathetic face no more, because it's spoiling my day. Richard stared and ruefully smiled at the detective as Detective Stevens took Richard back to where he was transported back to the state penitentiary. He was to await trial for part in the conspiracy for the murder of Franklin Nash and the attempted murders of Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins, and the second attempt on Sarah's life, and for other string of violent crimes he may have been involved in. Okay. Detective Robert Allen gave everyone at the police headquarters a thumbs up for their efforts. We're immensely proud of the witness who came forward and told us about the beating to death, mutilation, and torture of our main assassin, Frank Nash. We also know his murder took place at the abandoned house where Mondovi, the head of the gang of terror, had headquarters set up. We also know that Mr. Nash was placed in the alley where he was found by yours truly, Detective Stevens and Officer Dunleavy. Oh, I forgot. All of Mondovi's scuzz buckets were given a plea bargain even though they have life. They, next page, confessed that Robert Morris gave the okay to do whatever by any means necessary to end the life of Franklin Nash. Detective Stevens continued in haste his evidence against Richard Morris. The crumb bum Richard Morris beat the living tar out of the rookie assassin, Franklin Nash, because of the fact that he didn't carry out his hit against Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins, and a second attempt on the life of Sarah Langston. Conspiracy is what it was, and Richard Morris conspired in the murder of Franklin Nash and the attempted murders of Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins, and the second attempt on Sarah's life. He's going to be brought up on charges with a vengeance. Richard overheard Detectives George Stevens and Robert Allen in their speeches to the whole police department about his violent crimes. He became belligerent to the fact that all of his accomplices turned state evidence against him, and that he found their action against him very disloyal and totally dishonorable. Richard took out his frustration and became even more belligerent towards detectives than ever. What the devil you're talking about? You're taking revenge on Wong. You're trying to pin this crap on me. I didn't do anything. I don't know those heathens. I didn't conspire to nothing. And you all bringing all this heat down on me, totally pathetic. Detective Allen confronted Richard. He was closely in his face as he reminded of the attempted murders of his ex-friends Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins. Detective Stevens looked through his records and assured Richard that he will be brought up on charges with conspiracy sought to assassinate Kevin Osborne and Luther Rollins, and the murder of his accomplice and assassin, Franklin Nash. The second attempt on Sarah Langston's life, Detective Allen continued with his interrogation against Richard. You conspired, and then you plotted all these murder and attempted murders, and a second attempt on your ex-girlfriend, Sarah Langston. Do I need to say more? Your violent, puzzled past. Detective Stevens, what else do you have on this creature? Oh, your accomplices, aka assassins, turned on you, and it's complete and total mess you made of yourself only, my friend. Your nasty, beat-up old abandoned house and your nasty headquarters are going to be seized and torn down to rubber. Detective Allen continued looking through Richard's criminal record to dig up some more evidence that was reported against him the night of Franklin Nash's demise. Richard stared at the detectives like he was going to kill them with his eyes, a very scary combination of evil. It was all stated that you, Richard Morris, was the true master mind of all the events that occurred 2 nights ago. All this juicy evidence points directly towards Sherworth's buttocks. Conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy. Shall I say conspiracy again and again? Murder and mayhem, darling Richard. And conspired all this terror. Detective Stevens continued to interrogate Richard. You had Franklin Nash killed, as me, and Detective Allen stated earlier in the reports, Richard. I guess you were right. You don't have anything to say to us about this, so we're going to charge you with all these conspiracies on all accounts for murder of Franklin Nash and so on. Detective Allen continued his charges of conspiracy against Richard. Son, my dear Richard, you have 3 accounts of conspiracy of murder and attempted murder, including a second attempt on your girlfriend's life. You're going further up the road, Jack, and that's for life, my brother. So goodbye to life, health, and strength to lead a normal life and deal with the fact that your life right now as we speak is total BS. As Richard continued to deny his involvement in the conspiracy for murder of his accomplice, aka assassin, and attempted murders on his ex-friends and the second attempt on his ex-girlfriend's life, he decided at that moment to take the 5th and stick with his own story instead. I want a lawyer. I didn't conspire to nothing. Those boys did their own crime spree. I had no part in it. Okay, next page. Detective Stevens decided enough was enough with the questioning. There was no understanding or cooperation from Richard whatsoever. Richard was handcuffed and was about to be taken away until Detective Stevens had more things to say to Richard. Now, Richard, how do you know they did it on their own? Did you wish upon a star on that term? Do it on your own terms? These boys, you're out of your mind. You're out of your body. You're out of your soul, which is evil. So come on. Let's go, you scumbucket. Detective Stevens shoved Richard by his arm by force and walked him to the waiting police cruiser for Officer Dunleavy to transport him back to the state penitentiary, where he spent the remainder of his life. That was the end of chapter 3. The end of chapter 3, the interrogation of Richard's accomplices. I hope everyone enjoyed the fact that, I read the 3rd chapter of the Minorities, Richard's Indiscretions. And I hope that when I get ready for chapter 4, everybody be ready to listen. All right. I want everyone to like, share, subscribe to my podcast. Hit that notification button to know when I go live. Ring that bell for updates on my podcast. And for everybody who's listening, please send me your chatter letter. If you have a chatter letter you would like to send to me, send it to the Chatterbox Letters Podcast, P.O. Box 5556, Lakeland, Florida, 33807. You can write whatever you want in your chatter letter, long as you keep it clean, write your letters clear and discreet. Okay, I want everybody to please don't hesitate. Please procrastinate and send me your letter today.